The battlefield was still burning when the human soldier walked into the alien court. His boots were covered in dust and his uniform was torn, but he carried himself with stubborn pride. All around him, tall alien guards stood like statues, their armor glowing faintly in the dim light. Their sharp eyes followed every step he took, as if waiting for him to make the smallest mistake so they could cut him down instantly. The air was heavy, almost choking, and he felt sweat trickling down his back. Yet he forced himself to stand straight. At the center of the grand hall, upon a throne carved from black stone and shimmering crystals, sat the alien queen. She was taller than any woman he had ever seen, her figure both graceful and terrifying. Her eyes glowed like twin suns, bright and unblinking, and her crown pulsed faintly with energy. The hall fell completely silent as her gaze locked onto him. Every warrior, every noble, and every servant lowered their heads in respect, or in fear. The human, however, met her eyes with a mix of courage and nervousness. He hadn't planned to say anything. He was supposed to stand quietly, maybe beg for mercy if things turned ugly. But his nerves twisted into something else. His lips moved before his brain could stop them, and a half-smile spread across his face. He spoke the words like a careless joke, words that were not supposed to mean anything. You'd make a good wife. The sound carried across the entire throne room. The guards stiffened. Some nobles gasped. A few soldiers even hissed as if he had cursed their queen. The silence that followed was so sharp, it felt like the room itself had stopped breathing. His own heart hammered in his chest, and he realized instantly what he had done. He had insulted their queen. He had probably signed his death sentence with those foolish words. One of the armored guards stepped forward, hand already on his weapon. Another reached for the strange energy staff by his side. The court was seconds away from erupting in violence. The human swallowed hard, his face paling, but he forced himself not to step back. He thought, if I run, I die. If I beg, I die. If I fight, I still die. So maybe I should just stand here and accept it. The queen, however, did not shout. She did not order his execution. She did not even frown. Instead, her lips curved into a slow, unreadable smile. Her eyes never left his, and the glowing light inside them seemed to flare brighter. The court waited for her to explode in rage, but instead she spoke in a calm, steady voice that shook the room more than any scream could have. I accept. The human blinked. For a moment, he thought he had misheard. His ears buzzed, and his brain refused to make sense of it. Accept? Did she say accept? His knees almost gave out beneath him. Around the hall, the aliens broke into whispers, their voices filled with shock and disbelief. She accepted? What does this mean? Is she serious? A queen cannot marry an outsider. A human? Impossible. The queen raised her hand, and all voices died instantly. Her power over them was absolute. She leaned slightly forward on her throne, her piercing eyes still fixed on him. Her voice rang out again, this time stronger, clearer, and undeniable. This human has made an offer, she said, and I, Queen of the High Thrones, accept his proposal. The human's mouth went dry. He wanted to protest, to say it was just a joke, that he had not meant it. But his throat refused to form words. Every pair of alien eyes in the room was drilling into him, judging, hating, questioning. If he spoke now, would they kill him? Or would denying her insult her even more? One guard finally lost control and shouted, "My queen, this cannot be. He is unworthy, a weak creature of flesh and bone. He cannot stand beside you." The queen's gaze flicked toward the guard like a blade. "Silence," she ordered, and her voice carried such weight that the guard immediately dropped to one knee, trembling. The human felt his chest tighten. This was not how he expected to die. He had faced war, hunger, and bullets, but he had never imagined his fate would hang on a careless joke. He forced himself to speak, his voice low and uncertain. "Your Majesty, I didn't mean." "Do you take back your words?" the queen interrupted sharply. He froze. The room leaned forward in anticipation, waiting to see if he would beg or deny. His mind raced. If he said yes, it was a joke. Perhaps they would laugh, though more likely they would kill him for insulting their queen. If he said no, then what? Was he really agreeing to marry her? To stand beside a ruler of an alien empire? His tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. Finally, he managed to whisper, "No, I do not take them back." A spark lit in the queen's eyes, as if this was the answer she had been waiting for. The court erupted again, voices rising in outrage and confusion. But the queen only raised her hand once more, and the hall fell silent like a grave. "Then it is settled," she declared. "From this moment, this human is bound to me." The human felt the ground tilt beneath him, as if the entire world had shifted. He had spoken a joke, she had taken it as destiny. And now, whether he liked it or not, his life was no longer his own. He stood in the center of a storm, surrounded by enemies, tied to a queen whose mind he could not read. Was this the beginning of honor, or the start of his end? His eyes flicked to the queen one last time. She was still staring at him with that strange, unreadable smile. And in that moment, a single thought struck him like lightning. Maybe the joke wasn't mine anymore. Maybe the joke was hers. The human was taken from the throne room into a smaller chamber lit by glowing crystals on the walls. Guards with sharp weapons stood at the entrance, making sure he could not escape. He sat on a stone bench, his hands resting on his knees, trying to understand what had just happened. His heart was still racing from the queen's words. She had accepted his proposal, something he had never meant seriously. Now the entire court saw him as the queen's chosen partner, and he could feel their anger pressing against him like a storm waiting to break. The door opened, and the queen entered. The guards bowed deeply and stepped aside. She walked in with quiet authority, her tall figure filling the room with a sense of power. Her eyes glowed softly in the dim light as she looked at him. The human stood up quickly, unsure whether to bow or salute, but she raised her hand, stopping him. "You are confused," she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight, like steel wrapped in silk. "That's one way to put it," he muttered, his throat dry. "Why would you accept? Why me?" She moved closer, her long steps slow and graceful. For the first time, he noticed something different in her expression. It wasn't just pride or arrogance. There was calculation, maybe even a touch of weariness. "My people demand strength," she said. "They demand a leader who can unite them. For years, they have fought among themselves, noble houses hungry for more power. Every day, the balance of our empire grows weaker." The human frowned, listening carefully. He had not expected honesty. He had thought she would laugh at him or remind him of his place, but instead, she was speaking as if he mattered. "So what does that have to do with me?" he asked. Her eyes burned brighter as she replied, "Because no one expects it. Because no one can control it. Because by binding myself to you, I change the game completely. The noble houses cannot fight me the same way if I choose an outsider. They cannot use their bloodlines against me if my choice defies them all." The human blinked. He felt like the ground beneath him had shifted again. He realized then that her acceptance wasn't about love or desire. It was about power. It was about politics. He had walked into her hall as a stranger, a soldier, and she had turned him into a weapon in her war. "You're using me," he said quietly. Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "Of course, but do not think that makes you weak. It makes you important. No one will dare harm you while you stand beside me." He let out a bitter laugh. "Important? To them, I'm just a joke, a human, soft, fragile. They'd rather see me dead." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes, and that is why it works. Their hatred protects us. If I had chosen a noble warrior, they would all conspire against him. If I had chosen one of my own kind, they would whisper and plot in shadows. But with you?" She leaned closer, her voice dropping into a whisper. "They cannot predict what happens next. You are my shield because you are unexpected." The human's chest tightened. He didn't like the feeling of being a pawn in her game, but deep inside, he also knew she was right. Her people were dangerous, cunning, and proud. If she had picked anyone else, they would already be sharpening their knives. With him, they hesitated. "Do I get a choice in this?" he asked finally. She studied him for a long moment, her glowing eyes unreadable. "If you wish to leave, you may try," she said softly. "But I cannot protect you outside these walls. You would not survive a single night in my city. Already, there are whispers of killing you. Staying with me is the only path that keeps you alive." Her words hit him like a punch. He felt trapped, like a bird in a cage. He had wanted to laugh off his words, pretend the joke never happened, but now it was too late. The queen had spoken, and her word was law. His life was tied to hers, whether he wanted it or not. Still, there was something strange in her tone. When she said she could protect him, it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded almost like a promise. He looked at her, trying to read her face. And what about you? What do you gain from this besides confusing your enemies? For the first time, her smile faded. Her eyes softened just slightly. I gain time, she admitted. Time to hold this throne, time to strengthen my people, time to keep the wolves at bay. They see me as a ruler, but they also see me as vulnerable. By tying myself to you, I show them that I am untouchable. No blade, no poison, no betrayal can touch me without touching you. And that changes everything. The human was silent. He wanted to argue, to call her manipulative, to demand freedom. But part of him understood. He had seen politics on Earth, had seen leaders use people as symbols, as shields, as pawns in their endless games. Maybe this wasn't so different. Except this time, he was the pawn. And yet, there was a flicker of something else inside him. A small, dangerous spark. Because if he was important enough to change her empire's balance, maybe he wasn't just a pawn. Maybe he was something more. The queen straightened, her power filling the room once again. Do not fear their whispers. May, she said. Let them hate you. Let them doubt you. That doubt is the very thing that will keep you alive. He exhaled slowly, his mind spinning. This was no joke anymore. He had stepped into a war of shadows and thrones, and he was now bound to the most dangerous woman he had ever met. His future was no longer his own. It was hers. And yet, as she turned to leave, he couldn't help but wonder. Was she protecting him only for her throne, or was there something else behind those burning eyes? Something even she did not want to admit? The human woke up the next morning to the sound of drums echoing through the alien city. At first, he thought it was war again, but when he stepped outside the small chamber he had been given, he saw alien servants preparing the grand courtyard. Fires burned in tall braziers. Strange banners of silk and metal hung from the walls, each glowing faintly with symbols he couldn't read. The smell of incense and burning oils filled the air, thick and heavy. Something big was about to happen. One of the guards approached him, a tall warrior with pale skin marked by glowing scars. The queen has summoned you, the guard said with a sharp tone. The ritual begins. The human's stomach sank. Ritual? He asked. The guard did not answer, only gestured for him to follow. With no choice, he walked into the courtyard, where hundreds of alien nobles, soldiers, and priests had gathered. They formed a circle around a massive stone platform at the center. Above it, strange fire floated without fuel, shimmering in colors he had never seen before. The sound of the drums grew louder, steady like a heartbeat, and he realized everyone's eyes were on him. The queen stood on the platform, dressed in ceremonial armor that glowed with a silver light. Her crown was taller now, sharp points stretching upward like blades. She looked almost inhuman, like a goddess of fire and stone. When her gaze met his, he froze. There was no warmth in her eyes now, only power. Step forward, she commanded. He climbed the stone steps with hesitant feet. The air felt colder here, though flames burned all around. The queen raised her hand, and silence fell over the crowd. A priest, his face painted with black and gold, came forward holding a bowl filled with thick red liquid. The human's heart skipped when he realized what it was: blood. The priest dipped his fingers into the bowl and painted symbols across the queen's forehead, chest, and hands. Then he turned to the human. The alien guards grabbed his arms, forcing him to stand still. The priest smeared the same burning symbols across his skin, the liquid warm and sticky. He flinched, his breath shallow. "What is this?" he whispered through clenched teeth. The queen's voice was steady. "It is the binding. If we are to be joined, you must survive it." The words chilled him more than the cold air. Survive it? What did that mean? He wanted to protest, to back away, but the guard's grip was like iron. The priest began to chant in a language the human did not understand. The crowd joined in, their voices rising like thunder. The floating fire above them twisted and bent as if alive. The queen extended her hand, and a long ceremonial blade was placed in it. The blade shimmered with strange runes that seemed to crawl across the surface. She held the blade out to him. "Take it," she said. His hands shook as he reached forward. The metal burned against his skin, making him hiss, but he did not drop it. The queen's eyes flickered, watching him closely. "You will cut your palm," she instructed, "and I will do the same. Then our blood will fall into the fire. If the fire accepts us, the bond is sealed. If it rejects us..." Her voice trailed off, and for a moment, her eyes softened. Then the fire will consume you. The human's throat tightened. Consume me? Yes. Her reply was calm, as if death was just another detail. The crowd's chanting grew louder, pounding in his ears. He realized he had no choice. If he refused, they would kill him here. If he obeyed, he might still die, but at least there was a chance. He took a deep breath, raised the blade, and pressed it against his palm. Pain shot up his arm as the blade sliced into his flesh. Blood welled up instantly, warm and sticky. He clenched his jaw, refusing to cry out. The queen followed, drawing the blade across her own hand with no sign of pain. Her dark blood glowed faintly, as if filled with fire. They raised their hands together, side by side, and let their blood drip into the floating flame. The moment the drops touched the fire, it hissed violently, twisting into a storm of color. The heat slammed into his body, forcing him to stumble back, but the guards held him in place. His skin felt like it was burning from the inside. The flame rose higher, surrounding both him and the queen. For a terrifying moment, he thought it would swallow him whole. His vision blurred, and he could hear whispers in his ears, voices speaking in languages he didn't know. The fire tested him, pushing into his mind, searching, pulling at his soul. He felt as if every weakness, every fear, every hidden thought was being exposed. He almost fell to his knees, but then he felt something else. A warmth, steady and strong, pushing back against the fire. He turned his head and saw the queen's hand still raised, her glowing eyes locked on him. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw something human in her gaze. Determination, perhaps even hope. The fire roared, then suddenly collapsed into a single beam of light that shot upward into the sky. The crowd gasped, their voices breaking into shouts. The chanting stopped. The fire did not consume him. The ritual had accepted them. The queen lowered her hand, blood still dripping down her arm, and looked at him with the faintest hint of a smile. "It is done," she said. "You live." The guards released him, and he staggered back, clutching his burned palm. His chest was heaving, his whole body trembling. He had survived, but barely. The nobles in the crowd looked unsettled, angry even, but none dared to speak against the fire's decision. The queen turned to her people, her voice carrying like thunder. "The bond is sealed. This human is mine. None may challenge it." The human's heart pounded as the crowd bowed before her. He had entered the ritual fearing death, but he had walked out alive and bound to the most powerful woman in the galaxy. He wasn't sure if he had won or lost, only that his life would never be the same again. And in the back of his mind, one thought repeated itself. If this was only the beginning, what else awaited him in this dangerous new role? The night after the ritual, the human was led into a chamber unlike any he had seen before. The walls were carved from smooth black stone, glowing faintly with silver veins that pulsed like living light. Tall torches burned with blue fire, casting long shadows across the floor. The air was warm, filled with a strange scent of flowers he did not know. He realized quickly, this was not just any room. It was the queen's private chamber. The guards closed the heavy doors behind him, leaving him alone in the vast space. His heart pounded as he looked around. A bed stood at the far end, enormous, made of dark wood and covered in soft furs. Symbols had been carved into the headboard, marks of power and tradition. He knew instantly what this meant. This was the night he had been dreading. He swallowed hard and whispered to himself, "First night." The words tasted heavy. He remembered the way the priest had said it earlier that day. A wife's honor must be sealed tonight. The phrase still echoed in his mind. He was no fool. He understood what they expected. If he refused, the aliens would call him unworthy. If he accepted, he wasn't sure what he would become. The door opened again, and the queen entered. She was no longer in her ceremonial armor. She wore a flowing robe of deep red silk that shimmered in the firelight. Her long hair was loose, cascading down her shoulders like a dark river. She looked different now, less like a goddess of war, more like a woman. But her glowing eyes still carried the same sharp power that could make armies bow. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was so deep that he could hear his own breathing. He stood stiffly, not knowing whether to bow, salute, or run. She walked past him slowly, her steps graceful, her robe whispering against the floor. When she reached the bed, she turned to him. "Do you know why you are here?" she asked. Her voice was softer than before, yet it carried an edge, like a blade hidden under silk. He cleared his throat. I can guess," he said. Her lips curved faintly, though it was not a smile. Our traditions are older than memory. A union is not real until it is sealed. Tonight, we test not just your body, but your spirit. He shifted uneasily, his hands tightening into fists. And if I refuse? Her eyes narrowed, glowing brighter. If you refuse, they will say you are weak. They will say you mocked me and insulted my people. Tomorrow, the court will demand your execution. The human's chest tightened. So this was it. Fight or die, submit or be destroyed. He looked at her carefully. She did not seem cruel, but she was not offering him escape either. You don't want this any more than I do, he said finally. I can see it in your eyes. Her expression flickered for the first time. She tilted her head, studying him. You are observant for a human, she admitted. She walked closer, stopping only a few steps away. You are right. This is not about desire. It is about survival. If the court sees doubt in me, I lose everything. If they see weakness in you, you lose your life. That is the truth. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. So what happens if I fail? Her voice lowered, almost a whisper. Then I will kill you myself. Better by my hand than theirs. The words sent a chill through him. She meant it. Yet there was something strange in her tone. Not hatred, not anger, but something heavier, almost regretful. He realized she was trapped too, just like him. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the firelight flickering across their faces. Finally, she turned and sat on the edge of the bed, her glowing eyes never leaving his. She loosened the tie of her robe, letting it slip slightly from her shoulders. Her voice was steady when she spoke again. Come here, she ordered. His legs felt heavy as stone, but he moved forward. Each step made his chest tighten. His mind screamed at him to run, yet something deeper pushed him on. When he reached her, she raised her hand and placed it against his chest. Her palm was warm, almost burning, and he felt a strange energy seep into him, like fire crawling under his skin. This is more than a tradition, she said softly. This bond ties our lives together. Your strength becomes mine. My strength becomes yours. If you betray me, the bond will kill you. If I betray you, it will kill me. He froze. So this wasn't just about flesh or desire. This was about power, magic, something ancient that he barely understood. Why me? He whispered. Out of all the warriors, out of all your people, why me? Her hand pressed harder against his chest. For the first time, her voice softened, almost human. Because you are not one of them. You are unpredictable. And for once in my life, I need something I cannot control. The words stunned him. He stared at her, trying to understand. She looked back at him with eyes that glowed, but also carried a weight of loneliness he had not expected. The fire roared in the torches. The bond between them was no longer just ritual, no longer just survival. It was something deeper, stranger, dangerous. The human realized then that he was standing at the edge of a cliff. One step forward, and his life would change forever. One step back, and his life would end tonight. He took a slow breath, his mind screaming, his heart pounding. The queen's hand remained on his chest, her eyes locked on his. Neither moved, neither blinked. And in that silence, he understood the truth. This first night was not just about proving himself. It was about stepping into a future where he would never again be just a soldier, just a man. Tonight, he was either going to die or become something far greater. The morning after the first night, the human woke to the sound of whispers beyond the chamber walls. The queen was gone, already attending her duties, but he could feel the bond that had been sealed between them. It pulsed faintly in his chest, like an invisible thread tying him to her. He sat up slowly, his palms still aching from the wound made during the ritual, and noticed the silence in the room was heavy, almost threatening. When he stepped outside, the guards looked at him differently. Some avoided his eyes, others glared openly, as if daring him to make one wrong move. He could feel the weight of their hatred pressing against him. The nobles standing in the courtyard did not hide their contempt. Their eyes burned with anger, their whispers sharp like knives. He could hear fragments of their words. Unworthy, outsider, weak creature. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, one of the queen's advisors. He was tall, his skin marked with golden scars, his robe heavy with silver chains. His eyes gleamed with cunning as he smiled thinly at the human. You have made quite the impression, the advisor said. But do not mistake survival for acceptance. Many here would prefer to see your blood spilled on these stones. The human kept his face calm, though his heart raced. I guessed as much, he replied. The advisor's smile widened. And yet the queen protects you. Why? What has she seen in you that makes her defy centuries of tradition? Tell me, human, what spell have you cast? The human shook his head. No spell, just bad timing and worse jokes. The advisor's expression hardened. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. Then let me give you a warning. The court does not forgive weakness. The bond you share with her, it makes you a target. Assassins will test you. Poisons will find their way into your cup. And when you fall, the queen's throne will fall with you. The human's jaw tightened. So that's the plan then? Kill me to break her? The advisor straightened, folding his hands behind his back. I say nothing of plans. I only say that danger walks beside you now. If I were you, I would sleep with one eye open. With that, he walked away, leaving the human with the cold certainty that his words were more than idle threats. Later that day, the queen summoned him to her council chamber. She sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by nobles and generals. Maps of star systems glowed across the surface, lines marking battlefronts and trade routes. The air was tense, filled with the weight of power and politics. The human entered, and instantly the voices around the table grew sharper. One noble slammed his fist down. This cannot continue. He is not one of us. Every moment he breathes is an insult to our bloodlines. Another sneered. The fire may have accepted him, but we do not. What proof do we have that he is worthy to stand beside our queen? The queen raised her hand, silencing them. Her glowing eyes swept across the table, then settled on him. He is bound to me. That is proof enough. The nobles muttered in discontent, but none dared to speak against her directly. Still, the human could see the anger in their eyes, the way their hands twitched toward their weapons. He knew what they wanted, to see him fail, to see him bleed, to see him gone. After the council ended, the queen motioned for him to stay. When they were alone, she looked at him with an expression that was hard to read. You must be careful, she said. I've noticed, he answered. Your advisor already warned me. Seems like everyone here wants me dead. She walked closer, her robe flowing like liquid shadow. Not everyone, but enough. They will not challenge me openly, but they will strike at you. If you fall, they will say it was fate. If you show weakness, they will demand I cast you aside. His eyes narrowed. And what about you? Where do you stand in this? Am I just a shield to take their anger while you hold the throne? For a moment, she said nothing. Then her voice softened. At first, yes, you were a shield. But now, things are different. The bond has changed more than I expected. I feel your strength as if it were mine. When you bleed, I feel it. When you fight, I feel it. That connection is dangerous, but it is also powerful. It means you are no longer just a shield. You are a part of me. The human stared at her, unsure how to respond. He wanted to believe her words, but doubt gnawed at him. Still, there was something in her tone, something unguarded, that made his chest tighten. Before he could speak, the chamber door slammed open. A soldier stumbled in, blood running down his arm. He fell to one knee. Assassins, my queen. They have breached the outer walls. The queen's eyes flashed with fury. She drew her blade in one swift motion. So soon, she muttered. She turned to the human. Stay close. Tonight, you will see just how deep their hatred runs. His pulse quickened. This was no longer whispers and threats. This was real. Someone had decided to strike now, to test whether the bond could truly protect him. As the queen led him out of the chamber, her guards forming a shield around them, the human realized the truth. His survival was not just about him anymore. If he died, the queen's rule would shatter. If he lived, the court would rage, but be powerless to deny it. Every step he took down the hall felt heavier, filled with the weight of unseen eyes and hidden blades. The game had changed. The joke that had once been his downfall had now become a spark that could set an empire on fire. And somewhere in the shadows of the palace, killers were waiting to test just how long that spark would last. The attack came faster than anyone expected. The human had barely stepped out of the council chamber with the queen when the sound of steel clashing and energy weapons firing shook the palace halls. Shadows moved between the tall pillars, and assassins in dark armor burst out from hidden doors. Their blades glowed with strange poison, meant to kill in one cut. The queen reacted first. Her sword flashed, slicing through the air with deadly speed. One assassin fell instantly, but two more rushed forward. The human stumbled back, unarmed, his heart racing. A blade came straight at his chest. Without thinking, he grabbed a broken staff lying near the wall and blocked the strike. The impact rattled his bones, nearly knocking him off balance, but he refused to fall. The assassin snarled, pressing harder, and the human twisted with all his strength, slamming the staff into the attacker's face. The alien stumbled back, surprised. For a moment, both sides froze. The assassins clearly hadn't expected the human to fight back. "Stay behind me," the queen shouted, her voice sharp. She moved like fire, her blade cutting through two enemies at once. Her guards clashed with the others, but more assassins poured into the hall. The human's blood pounded in his ears. Every instinct told him to run, to hide. But another voice inside whispered, "If you fall now, everything ends." He tightened his grip on the staff and threw himself into the fight again. He wasn't skilled like the queen, but he was stubborn, and stubbornness was sometimes stronger than skill. One assassin lunged at him, aiming for his throat. The human ducked low, then rammed his shoulder into the alien's chest. Both of them crashed to the ground. The alien tried to stab him, but he grabbed the assassin's wrist, forcing the blade aside. His muscles burned, but he pushed harder until the weapon turned back and pierced the alien instead. Hot blood spilled across the floor. He pushed the body away, his chest heaving. His hands shook, but his eyes burned with a strange fire. For the first time since this madness began, he wasn't just surviving. He was fighting. The queen noticed. For a moment, her glowing eyes locked on him, and something flickered across her face. Respect. But there was no time to dwell on it. More enemies crashed through the doors, shouting war cries. The palace itself shook as explosions echoed outside. The assassins weren't alone. An entire enemy force was storming the city. A guard shouted, "The outer wall is broken. The enemy army is here." The queen's voice rose above the chaos, calm but full of iron. "Form ranks. Defend the throne." She turned to the human. "This is more than assassins. It is war." The human's throat went dry. War. He had been in battles before, but this was different. He was standing at the heart of an alien empire, its enemies pouring in from every side. He could almost hear the nobles whispering from earlier, waiting for him to fail. If he died here, they would use it as proof that he was unworthy. If he lived, he would be hated even more, but at least alive. The queen grabbed his arm suddenly. The bond between them pulsed like fire. "You must not fall," she said. Her voice was steady, but her grip was tight, almost desperate. "If you die, the bond dies. If the bond dies, my throne dies. Do you understand?" He nodded slowly, his mind spinning. "Then, I guess I don't have much of a choice." She released him, her expression unreadable, and turned back to the battlefield. Together, they fought their way through the palace halls. She moved like a storm, her sword carving paths of light. He fought with whatever he could grab, broken spears, enemy blades, even his fists when nothing else was near. His body ached, his arms bled, but he refused to give in. At one point, an assassin nearly struck the queen from behind. Without thinking, the human threw himself in the way, blocking the strike with his own arm. Pain exploded through him, but he used his other hand to grab the attacker's weapon and smash it against the wall. The assassin fell, lifeless. The queen turned, her eyes widening at the sight of his wound. For a heartbeat, her mask of control cracked. "You are bleeding," she said. He forced a grin, even as his arm throbbed. "Better me than you." Something shifted in her gaze, something she quickly hid before the others could see. She turned back to the fight, her voice stronger than ever. "Forward! Do not let them take the palace!" Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The battle raged across the city, flames lighting the night sky. The enemy army pushed hard, but the queen's forces pushed harder. And at the center of it all was the human, bloodied but unbroken, refusing to fall. Every strike he made, every step he held, proved that he was not weak. He was not a joke. When dawn finally came, the city was covered in smoke and ash. The palace steps were littered with the bodies of enemies. The surviving assassins had fled, and the enemy army had been forced back. The queen stood tall at the highest balcony, her sword raised high, her people cheering her name. But when her eyes found the human, still standing despite his wounds, her voice caught in her throat. The bond pulsed stronger than ever between them. She had thought he would be a shield, a tool. Instead, he had become something far more dangerous. That night, whispers spread through the court and across the empire. Whispers of a human who fought like fire, who stood beside their queen and bled for her. Some called it blasphemy, others called it fate. But all agreed on one thing: this was only the beginning. The human, sitting alone with his wounds wrapped in cloth, stared at the rising sun. His body hurt, his mind ached, but his heart was steady. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But one truth was clear: the war had changed everything. And now, bound by blood and battle, he was no longer just a soldier lost in an alien world. He was part of something far greater and far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. The city still smelled of smoke when the human walked into the throne hall. The fires had been put out, the dead carried away, but the memory of battle clung to every stone. Alien banners that had once hung straight and proud were torn and burned, their colors blackened by war. The nobles gathered again, their faces pale with anger and fear. Some glared at him openly, others whispered behind their hands, but no one dared to speak loudly while the queen sat on her throne. She looked different now, not just a ruler, not just a warrior. She looked like someone who had walked through fire and come out stronger. Her crown glowed faintly as she raised her hand for silence. The hall fell still. The human stood at her side, his arms still bandaged from the battle. He felt their eyes on him, heavy with judgment. One noble finally stepped forward, his voice sharp. "My queen, this madness must end. He is not one of us. He is weak. He is human. If you keep him, you risk the throne, you risk all of us." Murmurs of agreement spread through the hall. Another noble shouted, "Send him back to his world. Break the bond. It is an insult to our bloodlines." The queen's eyes flared with light. Silence. Her voice struck like thunder. The nobles froze, their faces pale. She stood, her tall figure casting long shadows across the hall. "You call him weak," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "You call him unworthy. Yet when assassins stormed our walls, when our enemies broke through the gates, where were you?" Her words cut like blades. The hall was silent. She pointed to the human. "This man fought. He bled. He stood when others would have run. He held the line while you whispered in corners. He is bound to me by fire, by blood, and by battle. And you dare to call him unworthy?" The nobles lowered their heads, but their anger still burned in their eyes. The human swallowed hard, his chest tight. He hadn't asked for any of this. He hadn't wanted to be a symbol, but now he was standing in the center of an empire's storm. The queen stepped down from her throne and stood beside him. Her presence filled the hall, her eyes burning brighter than ever. "This human is not my weakness," she declared. "He is my strength, and from this day forward, he is not only my consort, but my chosen king." Gasps filled the room. The human's heart stopped for a moment. King? He hadn't imagined it. He hadn't even wanted to be her husband, and now she was declaring him ruler beside her. One general slammed his fist on the floor. "Impossible. He cannot lead us. He does not know our ways, our wars, our blood." The queen's voice cut through the protest like steel. "Then he will learn, and you will obey. The fire accepted him. The bond accepted him. And I have accepted him. That is law." The human felt the bond pulsing inside his chest, stronger now, as if her words gave it new power. He looked around the hall, seeing the fury on their faces, but also the fear. They could hate him, but they could not deny the fire, nor deny her. After the council ended, the queen led him to the balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, casting the sky in shades of gold and red. From below, he could hear the voices of the people. They chanted her name, but some had started chanting his too. It sent a shiver down his spine. "You see?" The queen said softly. "They will resist, but they will also follow. The nobles hate you, but the people love stories, and you have become one." He shook his head, still trying to understand. "This started as a joke? I never meant—" She turned to him, her glowing eyes steady. "A joke can be the spark of destiny. You spoke without thinking, and now fate has bound us together. Perhaps it was never a joke at all." He stared at her, the weight of her words sinking deep. He had thought himself unlucky, a fool who had said the wrong thing at the wrong time. But now, standing here with her, he wondered if maybe he had been meant to be here all along. The queen's gaze softened, only for a moment. "You will have enemies more than you can count. They will come for you in shadows, in courts, on battlefields. But you will not face them alone. You are mine, and I am yours. Together, we will bend this empire to our will." He let out a slow breath, his chest heavy but steady. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring. Plots, wars, betrayals, but he knew one thing. He wasn't running anymore. The bond between them burned stronger than ever, tying his life to hers. He looked out at the city, at the empire that now expected him to be their king, and whispered to himself, "So be it." The queen stood beside him, her tall frame casting a long shadow over the balcony. She didn't laugh, didn't smile, but there was a spark in her eyes that told him everything. This was only the beginning. And somewhere beyond the city walls, in the darkness of space, other empires watched. They saw the union of a queen and a human, and they did not see a joke. They saw a threat. War would come again. But when it did, the galaxy would learn one truth. What had started as a careless joke had turned into destiny. And destiny was far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined.